Keep on then, seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. Matthew 6:33. Imagine for a moment that you are hiking on a dense, forested trail late in the afternoon. The path has been steep, and your legs are burning with exhaustion. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long, confusing shadows through the trees, you come to a fork in the road. You are tired, you are hungry, and you are beginning to doubt if you even brought the right supplies for this journey. One path looks easy, a gentle slope downwards toward what looks like a comfortable town. The other path, the one the map says you must take, looks rugged, uphill, and uncertain. You stumble over a tree root and fall hard, scraping your hands. Sitting there in the dirt, the urge to just give up is overwhelming. "I can't do this," you whisper. "I'm not strong enough." But then, your guide, who has been walking ahead, comes back. He doesn't scold you for falling. He doesn't mock your fatigue. Instead, he offers a hand up, dusts you off, and points to a clearing just ahead where there is fresh water and a view of the summit. "I know you are tired," he says gently, "but the destination is worth it. I will help you carry the load. Just keep walking." This scenario, though simple, mirrors the spiritual reality many of us face at some point in our walk with Jehovah. We all encounter moments where the journey seems too hard, where our own mistakes weigh us down, and where we stand at a critical crossroads. It is in these moments of vulnerability that the words of Jesus recorded in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, take on a profound depth. When Jesus urged his listeners to keep on then, seeking first the kingdom, he was not speaking to people who had easy lives. He was speaking to people who worried about food, about clothing, and about tomorrow. He was asking them to trust that if they prioritize God's rule in their lives, their loving Father would ensure they had what they needed to survive. This promise is not just about bread and water. It is about the spiritual sustenance and emotional resilience we need when we feel like giving up. It is a promise that Jehovah and Jesus will not abandon us, even when we stumble. To understand the depth of this commitment from Jehovah and Jesus, we can look closely at the life of the Apostle Peter. Peter was a man of deep emotion and fierce loyalty, but he was also prone to human error. There is perhaps no greater crossroads in his life than the dark, confusing days surrounding the death of Jesus. Peter had boasted that he would never leave his Lord. He was confident in his own strength, in his own love. Yet when the test came in the courtyard of the high priest, fear paralyzed him. Under the pressure of accusation, not from a soldier, but from a servant girl, Peter denied knowing Jesus. He did not just deny him once, he did it 3 times. The crowing of the rooster must have sounded like a thunderclap in his soul. At that moment, Peter crashed. The Bible tells us he went out and wept bitterly. He had failed his master. He had failed himself. In that moment of crushing failure, Peter stood at the ultimate crossroads. The easy path would have been to give up entirely. He could have reasoned that he was unworthy, that his sin was too great, and that he should simply return to his fishing boats and forget his calling. Satan, the great adversary, undoubtedly wanted Peter to feel hopeless. Satan wants us to believe that a single failure defines our entire future. He wants us to believe that Jehovah has turned his back on us. But notice what Jesus had told Peter before this tragedy occurred. In the account of Luke chapter 22, verses 31 and 32, Jesus revealed a glimpse of the spiritual battle taking place. He said, "Simon, Simon, look, Satan has demanded to have all of you to sift you as wheat." This was a terrifying prospect. Satan wanted to shake Peter so violently that his faith would fall apart like chaff. However, Jesus did not leave Peter defenseless against this attack. He added one of the most comforting sentences in all of Scripture. "But I have made supplication for you that your faith may not give out." Think about what this means. Before Peter even committed the sin, Jesus had already prayed for his recovery. Jesus knew Peter would stumble, yet he did not reject him. Instead, he invested in Peter's future. Jesus looked past the mistake and saw the potential for restoration. He gave Peter a vision of what lay on the other side of his failure, telling him, "And you, when you have returned, strengthen your brothers." Jesus was essentially saying, "You are going to fall, Peter, but you are also going to get back up. And when you do, you will be stronger, wiser, and better equipped to help others." This reveals a beautiful truth about our leadership. Jehovah and Jesus do not give up on us easily. They view us not for who we are in our lowest moments, but for who we can become with their help. After his resurrection, Jesus made a special effort to reassure Peter. The angel at the tomb specifically told the women to tell his disciples and Peter that Jesus was raised. That specific mention of his name must have been a balm to Peter's wounded heart. It was a personal invitation, a signal that he was still included, still part of the family. Later, Jesus appeared to Peter individually. We do not know the details of that private conversation, but we can be sure it was a moment of healing where forgiveness was confirmed and the relationship was restored. But the restoration of Peter went even further. It touched on the very practical promise of Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, regarding material needs. After the resurrection, Peter and some other disciples were uncertain about what to do next. They returned to what they knew best: fishing. They spent an entire night on the Sea of Galilee, working hard, casting their nets, but they caught nothing. As the morning sun rose, they were tired, hungry, and empty-handed. It was another moment of discouragement. Then, a stranger on the shore called out to them. He told them to cast the net on the right side of the boat. When they obeyed, the catch was so huge they could not even haul it in. It was a miracle that echoed their first calling. When they reached the shore, they realized the stranger was Jesus. And what did they find? Jesus had not just performed a miracle for the catch, he had prepared breakfast. There was a charcoal fire, with fish lying on it and bread. Here, the resurrected Lord of Lords, the King of God's kingdom, was cooking breakfast for his friends. This touches the heart deeply. Jesus cared about their spiritual future, yes, but he also cared that they were cold and hungry. He fed them physically before he fed them spiritually. It was in this setting, around the warmth of the fire, and with a full stomach, that Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" With each affirmation, Jesus gave him a new assignment: feed my little sheep. Peter's restoration was complete. He had been fed, he had been forgiven, and he had been given a purpose. He learned that seeking the kingdom first did not mean he would starve. It meant that the king would look after him. Peter went on to become a pillar of the early congregation. He wrote 2 inspired letters that have comforted millions. He opened the way for the Gentiles to hear the good news. He faced persecution and imprisonment with a courage that was completely missing that night in the courtyard. The man who cowered before a servant girl later stood before the Sanhedrin and boldly declared that he must obey God as ruler rather than men. What made the difference? He knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that he had Jehovah's backing. How can we apply these powerful lessons to our lives today? First, we must recognize that we will all face our own courtyard moments. We may make mistakes. We may succumb to fear of man, or we may fail to uphold a righteous standard in a moment of weakness. We might feel that we have let Jehovah down so badly that there is no way back. When these feelings overwhelm us, we must remember Jesus' prayer for Peter. Jesus is our high priest, and he pleads for us. He does not want our faith to give out. If we are repentant, he does not look at us with condemnation, but with a desire to heal us. We must not give up on ourselves when Jehovah has not given up on us. Second, we need to understand the role of the caring shepherds mentioned in the source material. In Peter's day, Jesus personally strengthened him. Today, Jehovah uses the gifts in men, the elders in the congregation, to provide that same assurance. These brothers are appointed to shepherd the flock of God. When we are at a crossroads, unsure if we can carry on, these elders are there to help us navigate. They are not there to judge us harshly, but to readjust us with mildness. Just as Jesus cooked breakfast for the disciples, elders today often provide practical, tangible help along with spiritual counsel. They might share a scriptural thought that changes our perspective, or simply listen with a sympathetic ear, reminding us of Jehovah's love. We should never underestimate the power of a visit from these shepherds. Sometimes, our own heart condemns us, and we cannot see our own value. The elders can help us see ourselves through Jehovah's eyes. They can remind us of our past faithful service, just as Jesus reminded Peter of his love. They can help us see that a stumble is not a fall from which we cannot recover. If you are struggling, do not isolate yourself. Reach out to the shepherds. Allow them to apply the soothing oil of God's word to your spiritual wounds. They are part of Jehovah's answer to your prayers, a concrete expression of his care for his sheep. Third, we must trust the promise regarding our material needs. In a world that is increasingly unstable, where economies shake and prices rise, it is easy to become anxious about what we will eat or what we will drink. We might be tempted to push kingdom interests to the side to secure our financial future. But Peter's experience on the beach reminds us that Jesus is aware of our physical needs. When the disciples put the ministry first, following Jesus' direction to cast the nets, their needs were more than met. Jehovah is not blind to our bills or our groceries. He knows we need these things. When we make sacrifices for the ministry, perhaps by working fewer hours to pioneer, or by simplifying our life to serve where the need is greater, we are essentially casting our nets at Jesus' command. It might seem illogical from a human standpoint. The fish might not seem to be there, but the God who controls the very beasts of the field and the fish of the sea is capable of providing for his loyal ones. We may not always have a feast, but we will have our daily bread. We will have what is necessary to sustain us as we do his will. This trust is what allows us to be courageous. It frees us from the crushing weight of anxiety and allows us to focus our best energies on the most important work, the sanctification of Jehovah's name. Finally, let us learn the lesson of persistence. Peter did not become a rock-solid apostle overnight. It was a process of growth, failure, correction, and recovery. He had to learn to rely not on his own strength, but on the strength that God supplies. We too are in a process of being molded. If you are currently feeling weak, or if you feel you have failed, do not stop walking. Do not sit down on the path and refuse to move. Look up. Your guide is there. The congregation is there. The ransom sacrifice covers your errors. The only way to fail is to stop seeking Jehovah. As long as you keep seeking the kingdom, you are on the right road. The world we live in is harsh and unforgiving. It chews people up and spits them out when they are no longer useful. But Jehovah's organization is different. It is a hospital for the spiritually sick, a training ground for soldiers of Christ, and a family that loves at all times. We have every reason to hope. We have every reason to get back up. We have the backing of the Creator of the universe, who has promised to hold our right hand and say, "Do not be afraid. I will help you." Let that assurance propel you forward. Let us resolve, then, to imitate Peter's recovery, not his fall. Let us accept the help of the shepherds Jehovah has provided. Let us trust that our material needs will be met as we serve the King. And let us never forget that our value is not determined by our mistakes, but by the love of the God who calls us his children. The kingdom is the pearl of high value. Let us keep seeking it first, with full confidence that everything else we truly need will be added to us. Take comfort in knowing that Jehovah's hand is never too short to save, nor his ear too heavy to hear the cry of his loyal servant who seeks him with a complete heart.